Visibility switches are a special type of slider, so everything that you know about RC sliders applies to switches, but there are some specifics, and this is what I will focus on in this video. Switches are extremely handy in all situations where some relayering may be needed. We usually can use duplicates and then switch these duplicates on and off, as is the case with the limbs here. If I turn the torso with a simple switch, we make these limbs appear as if they are changing layer order. I will demonstrate again just with the upper torso. Here is another switch which only switches the arms. Switch, and there we go. Another switch here for this hand will let us make the hand appear on top of the torso. So this is how switches work. And now let me dig into details about the internal workings of those switches. We're not necessarily limited to switching on and off smart magnet rig elements. We can switch on and off anything, as is in this case. This is just a symbol on the stage. We can create a switch by pressing on the RC sliders button and then going for visibility switch. I'll choose a nice green color and create the switch. Let's place it here. So with the switch in place, we can switch on and off the object. Now let's turn outlines for this object and see what happens actually. The symbol is replaced with a proxy object, which is invisible and unmovable. Now we can move this with Kinematics, but once it is invisible, it's also locked. So we can't move it with Kinematics, and we can't select and move it with the normal selection tool. It's good to remember. Now I'll get rid of this switch, just delete it, and duplicate this object using Element Welder Duplicate. Now we have a copy, and just so that we can easily distinguish the copy, I'll just give it some tint. Okay, so now we know when the duplicate is on and when it's off. And let's create a switch. Here's the switch. Okay, so if we go in outline mode, you see that the duplicate is now switched off and is in the form of its proxy object. Now, when we move with Kinematics, Kinematics will take the hidden object into account and modify it as we modify the original. So once we switch it on, you see it always matches. But let's imagine that we do not use Kinematics for this transformation. Such things can happen, and instead use the normal selection tool. If we move the original, the duplicate will stay there, and then we'll have two objects where the duplicate has moved away. And this is where the feature of realignment comes into place. If you happen to misalign the duplicate with its original, you can always do so by pressing the realign button. So what I did was I clicked on the three dots here on the left of the switch, and then I'll press the realign button. The moment you press the button, the duplicate is realigned with its original. Another option for realignment would be to Alt-Shift-Click on the switch. Now let me misalign these again, and this time apply some transformations to this object, even some distortion. Now with Kineflex, when I Alt-Shift-click, the duplicate will be realigned with its original. So this can happen if we, for example, again, while it's switched off, we apply some transformations, unaware that we are changing only the original and the duplicate has remained unchanged. When we show it, their offsets and the transformations are different, so a simple Alt-Shift-click on the switch will realign the duplicate with the original. Okay, I'll get rid of these now, and let's look into one more example of duplication and switches, as this classic example where we would like to have the lower arm and the hand appear on top of the chest. Let me select these two and duplicate using element welder duplicate, then grab the duplicate layers and put them on top of everything. And then for these two, I will create the visibility switch. Okay, this is our switch here. And now if we go in outline mode, let me give these some bright color so that we can very easily see them, and click on the switch. Okay, so that's what happens. The actual arm and hand are replaced by the invisible proxy objects. If they're not in outline mode, there's nothing to see. When we move these with Kineflex, the proxy objects are always taken into account, so they will always stay synced with their parents. In this case, these are hard-welded duplicates, so they will always stay in sync. So in this case, if I move the hand like that, even if we change the frame of the hand, say if I use the frame scrub, this will be accounted for by Kineflex. So if I show the actual elements with the switch, you see this was taken into account. So Kineflex controls the proxy objects properly, so we will always be able to have them in sync. But again, if something happens, if you just by accident, say let me add a keyframe. Now normally, even if this is, as I said, even if this is switched off, normally if I move this hand and add a tween and switch on here, everything will be fine. But let's imagine that by mistake we had it switched off, and then instead of using Kineflex we use just the normal selection tool. So let's do an animation with the selection tool by doing this kind of transformation with Smart Transform. And now if I switch it on, we'll end up with this offset limit. So as I said, we need to realign when we accidentally create this kind of problem for ourselves. It doesn't really matter from what frame you will execute the realignment. As long as you hit realign, all frames will be realigned. So let's do it from here. Go realign, and now when we look at the tween, everything will work fine. So keep in mind that there is always this option if you accidentally offset your originals and your duplicates while the duplicates are switched off. There is one option in settings for the visibility switches which I will mention, and this is don't sync first frame on realign. So normally realign will also sync the first frame, but there are some situations where you wouldn't want that to happen. In this case, with the ears, the duplicates actually have a different first frame set, and we don't want that to be set. Let me just show you. I'll unlock the ears and show you. These are our duplicates, and these are the originals. So this element here to appear behind actually is set to another frame. So this is frame 1 and this is frame 2. If I had it sync the first frame, let me demonstrate. If I switch this off, upon realignment it will sync, but it will also switch the frame. There you go. So we didn't want that. So that is why when we set up this switch, I had chosen don't sync the first frame for these elements, like this. And now if I execute the realignment again, this one will stay as it is. So hopefully this covers all the important information about visibility switches. Thanks for watching.